अच्छा, so in the previous video we ended with Newton's third law of motion. So in this video we'll be starting with special cases of Newton's second law of motion. So special cases of Newton's second law of motion. So what do I mean by this? See, in Newton's second law of motion, or from Newton's second law of motion, we already know that F is equals to rate of change of momentum, or force is equals to rate of change of momentum, or dp by dt. Where momentum and force are both vector quantities. Or F can be written as d product of mass into velocity by dt, because momentum is nothing but product of mass into velocity. So when we mathematically differentiate two products m into v, we take m, then differentiate v, then we take v as constant, then differentiate m. Now in earlier cases, this dm by dt was equals to 0. Why? The body was not changing its mass. But suppose, for example, take rocket for example. Okay, a rocket moves with velocity v, and the acceleration of rocket is equals to 0. But the mass of rocket changes with time. That means this rocket is moving upwards by throwing gas downwards. It is ejecting some amount of gas, okay, with some amount of velocity downwards, and thereby the rocket is going up. So the mass of the rocket changes. So dm by dt won't be equals to 0. Dm by dt has some positive value. But since the rocket is moving with constant velocity and acceleration is equals to 0, okay, dv by dt becomes 0. So we get force is equals to v, or velocity of the rocket, into dm by dt. So what is this v? V is nothing but the velocity of this rocket. What is this dm by dt? Dm by dt is nothing but the rate of decrease of mass of rocket. Rate of decrease of mass of rocket. Dm by dt, capital Dm by dt, is nothing but rate of decrease of mass of rocket. Okay, now see out here. From Newton's third law, I mentioned that the force exerted by the rocket on pushing out the gas, the force by rocket on exhaust gas, is equals to the force exerted by the exhaust gas on the rocket, okay, by Newton's third law. So the force exerted by the rocket on the exhaust gas is nothing but velocity of exhaust gas into rate of flow of exhaust gas. So we can say that u, or velocity of exhaust gas, u is nothing but the velocity of exhaust gas, into rate of ejection of exhaust gases, is equals to v. V is nothing but velocity of rocket into rate of change of mass of rocket. This dm by dt is nothing but exhaust flow rate. Exhaust means the gases moving out of the back end of the rocket. Now this exhaust flow rate means, suppose this dm by dt, this capital dm by dt represents, suppose the initial mass of the rocket was 600 kg. Okay, if dm by dt is given as 1 kg per second, that means per second the rocket is losing 1 kg. That means in the next second it will be 599, in the next second it will be 588. Similarly, u dm by dt means per second how much gas is being ejected out. U is the velocity of the gas at which it is being ejected out, and dm by dt is how much kg of gases per second it is being ejected out. Okay, so we'll understand these two things by solving problems. Okay. Now look at the problem. A force on a rocket moving with a velocity 300 meter per second is 210 Newton. The rate of consumption of fuel is, the velocity of the rocket is given by 300 meter per second. Okay. The force exerted by the exhaust gas on the rocket is equals to 210 Newton. And the rocket is moving with constant velocity. So F, from previous derivation, we know that F is equals to V dm by dt, or velocity of rocket into rate of decrease of mass of rocket. Or if this F is nothing but given as 210 Newton. V is given as 300. So when you substitute the value, 210 is equals to 300 dm by dt, or dm by dt is equals to 210 by 300. When you solve this, we get 3 7s are 21, 3 10s are, or dm by dt is equals to 0.7. That means rate of consumption of fuel is equals to rate at which the rocket is decreasing its mass, okay, which is equals to 0.7 kg per second. Okay. Now let's see the next question. A force on a rocket is moving with a velocity 300 meter per second and the force is 345 Newton. So I'm doing this quicker. Okay, the velocity of the rocket is 300 meter per second. We did the same problem in the previous example. Force is equals to V dm by dt. Force is given by 345, velocity is given by 300 into dm by dt, or dm by dt is equals to 345 by 300, which is equals to 1.15 kg per second. That means the rate of combustion of fuel, is equals to the rate at which the rocket is decreasing its mass. Okay. So observe one thing out here. Observe one thing. Rate of decrease of mass of rocket is equals to rate of consumption of fuel. That means rate of decrease of mass of rocket is equals to rate of consumption of fuel. Why? Because if the rocket is consuming 5 kg of fuel per second, that means the rocket is decreasing by 5 kg per second. Okay, decreasing its mass by 5 kg per second. The rocket is consuming 5 kg of fuel per second and throwing it out. That means that rocket is decreasing its mass with rate of 5 kg per second. Now, let's see the next question. A satellite in a force-free space sweeps stationary interplanetary dust rate at dm by dt is equals to alpha v. The acceleration of the satellite is. What is happening out here? Okay, there is a satellite in deep space. In deep space, it was moving with velocity v. Now Newton's first law of motion says that to change the velocity of any object, you need force. Okay, so this will keep on moving with velocity v. But contrary to the popular belief, space is not exactly empty. Space contains a lot of dust particles. Okay, not as much as our atmospheric air, but it contains. There is nothing called pure vacuum. Okay, there is nothing called pure vacuum. And while moving through this, while this satellite is moving through these dust particles sticks to the satellite. This dust particle sticks to the satellite. Thereby, when the dust particle sticks to the satellite increases its mass. Okay, so, and that increasing mass with respect to time is given by alpha v. That v is the velocity of satellite and alpha is a constant. Okay, now see what happens. When the satellite collides with the dust particle and the dust particle settles on it, the mass of the satellite increases, but there is also some force, inherent force acting on the satellite. Okay, and that force is given by the rate of increase of mass of the satellite, because the velocity is constant, no? So force is equals to V dm by dt. Okay, now if we substitute this dm by dt with alpha v out here, then we get F is equals to V alpha v, or F is equals to alpha v square. Now look carefully out here. As this dust particle, as the satellite was moving with some velocity v, okay, it collided with dust particle, and that dust particle causes some force. Okay, now because of force, the velocity will try to decrease. So when the velocity tries to decrease, there will be an acceleration. That means there is an acceleration. This dust particle causes an acceleration in backward direction, which causes reduction in velocity. Okay, a satellite was moving with velocity v. It collided with dust particles. Okay, the dust particle increases mass. From there we got force. Okay, now because the dust particle is hitting the satellite, there is some inherent force acting on the satellite, which causes an acceleration in this direction. Okay, so velocity is in this direction and acceleration in this direction. That means the velocity will decrease. Okay, so if we substitute this F or force by mass of the satellite into acceleration of the satellite, we get ma is equals to alpha v square. Alpha v square. Or A is equals to alpha v square by m. So our correct option is option number B. The negative sign represents, this negative sign out here represents that the thing is actually retarding. That means velocity and acceleration are acting in opposite direction. So whenever velocity and acceleration are acting in opposite direction, that means the velocity slowly reduces. Okay, the velocity slowly reduces. So let's do the next question. A 600 kg rocket. A 600 kg rocket is set for a vertical firing. If the exhaust speed is 1000 meter per second, okay, the mass of the gas ejected per second to supply the thrust needed to overcome the weight of the rocket. Okay, that means this rocket is weighing 600 kg. Now the minimum force required to lift off this 600 kg is how much? What is the minimum amount of force required to lift off this 600 kg? The minimum amount of force required to lift off 600 kg is 600 into force of gravity, or F is equals to 6000 Newton. So minimum force required out here is equals to 6000 Newton. Okay, remember this 6000 Newton is just being used to counter the gravity. There is still no acceleration out here. Okay, now this 6000 Newton would be applied by this exhaust gas out here. Okay, this 600 Newton force would be applied by exhaust gas out here, and the velocity of this exhaust is given by 1000 meter per second. Okay, so we know that force is equals to velocity of rocket into rate of change of mass of rocket is equals to velocity of exhaust gas into rate of ejection of exhaust gas. This U is the velocity of exhaust gas out here. Or F required is equals to 6000 Newton. Velocity of exhaust gas is 1000, and dm by dt, or rate of ejection of exhaust gases, is therefore 6. 6000 divided by 1000 is equals to 6. Therefore, the rate at which exhaust gas come out of this rocket is 6 kg per second. That means each second 6 kg of gas is ejected by this rocket. Okay. Now before we proceed to the next topic, we'll learn different types of forces. So before we learn about different types of forces, what are forces? What are forces? Forces are nothing but a push or pull. See, if I'm pushing any object or pulling any object, those are called forces. Okay? And so push or pull is called forces. Now necessarily they do not have to be in contact to apply push or pull. For example, magnet. They push or pull each other. A north pole of a magnet and a north pole of a magnet pushes each other. Okay? They necessarily do not have to be in contact to exert a pushing force or a pulling force. Okay? So out here we'll determine few types of forces. Few types of forces. The first type of forces that we'll start with is tension force. Tension force. So what is tension force? Tension force is a pulling force exerted by rope or wire. Okay? Pulling force exerted by rope or wire. Pulling force exerted by rope or wire is called tension force. Okay? So what do I mean by that? Imagine two bodies out here. This is body B. This is connected by a rope to body A. Now suppose I pull body A by some force F. Okay? Now look at this body B only. This body B is being pulled by, if you apply some common sense, that means this body will move towards right by this pull. Okay? So who is pulling this body B? The body B is being pulled by this wire or this rope. Okay? So a force is exerted on body B by this rope that causes the body B to move. So that force is acting in this direction. So similarly, if I pull something, that body will obviously resist the motion, a change in motion. So similarly, this rope out here, see, this rope pulls body B with some tension force. Okay? Because this rope is being pulled by this body A. This rope is being pulled by this body A. Okay? Now when the body A pulls the rope, that means the rope is also pulling the body A in opposite direction with same magnitude of tension T. Okay? If you draw the FBD or free body diagram of both bodies, what are free body diagrams I'll explain, but if you draw the forces separately on each bodies, the forces will come out as B, A, on the right hand side we have F, on the left hand side we have T. Okay? This is the free body diagram of the body. Now a second point to remember about tension force is, it always acts away from the body. Okay? Tension force always acts away from the body. What do I mean by this? Suppose this tension force, see this tension force out here, this tension force is acting away from body B, and see the tension force out here at body A, this tension force is acting away from body A. So both these tension forces are acting away from the body. Okay? That means drawing tension forces like this or like this is wrong. Towards the body, drawing tension forces towards the body is wrong. Okay? Point number C. A rope, wire or cable or a tension force cannot push an object. Okay, a rope, wire, or cable cannot push an object. Cannot push an object. Okay. So when you try to push something by a rope, the rope will bend itself. Okay. So why am I telling this? This is just a common sense, but I have seen people applying pushing force to a rope. Okay. And this is important. The fourth observation out here is important. For same rope, the value of tension is same throughout the rope. Okay. For same rope, the value of tension force, the value of tension force is same throughout the rope. Okay, the value of tension force is same throughout the rope. So what do I mean by that? Meaning, when the rope is same, this will understand better in pulley systems, but for now just see this example. When the rope is same, see the rope pulling body B and the rope pulling body A is the same rope. Therefore, the tension force applied on body B by rope A, by this rope, is equals to T. The same magnitude of tension force will be applied by the rope on body A. Okay, this will be more evident as we solve pulley problems. Okay. Now the second type of force. The second type of force we'll be discussing is normal force. Normal force. In some books, normal force are also written as reaction force. Reaction force. Okay. What is normal and reaction force? The pushing force exerted by two bodies in contact at the surface of contact is called normal force. So let me write the definition. After this I'll explain. Okay. The pushing force exerted by two bodies in contact exerted by two bodies in contact at the surface of contact is called normal force. At the surface of contact is called normal force. Normal force. So what do I mean by this? Now take an example. Two blocks, block A, two block of ice, okay, and block B. They are kept together. Remember, they are not attached. Okay, if I pull A to the left hand side, they will get separated. They are just kept. Okay. Now if I apply and force F to block A from the left hand side, by common sense we can deduce that block B will also move to the right. So how is block B moving towards right? Block B will be moving towards right because there is a force exerted on block B by this surface contacting A and B. There is a force exerted on block B by block A on this by this surface, okay, called normal force or reaction force. Okay. Similarly, when this surface is exerting a normal force, equal and opposite amount of normal force will be exerted by block B on block A. Okay, Newton's third law. Okay, now, and there was already an existing force of F from the left hand side. Okay. Now point number B of normal force. Normal force cannot pull anything. That means if I pull A towards left, the block will get separated. Block A won't be pulling block B with it. Okay? So normal forces cannot pull anything. Normal forces cannot pull anything. Number C. Normal forces is always acting perpendicular to the surface of contact. Normal forces is always perpendicular to the surface of contact. So what do I mean by that? Let me write it first. Normal forces are always perpendicular to the surface of contact. Now see this normal force out here. See this normal force out here. The angle made by this normal force and the angle made by this surface is 90 degree. That is the meaning of perpendicular to the surface of contact. Similarly, the angle made by this surface and made by this force is equals to 90 degree. But this raises a very important question. Sir, what happens if one of the body is flat and the other is circle? If one of the bodies is flat and the other one is circle, are there no normal forces out here? Of course, there will be normal force applied by the ground on the circle. The normal force is up. But you just now said normal force is perpendicular to the surface of contact. See this circle out here. See this circle out here. At the point of contact, the tangent at the point of contact is perpendicular to the normal force. Okay? The tangent at the point of contact at the ground is equals to the tangent of the ground. Okay? And that tangent is perpendicular to the normal force. Similarly, if two balls collide, that means the tangent out here is equals to the tangent out here. That means normal force will be in this direction and normal force will be in this direction. Okay? Sir, why two normal forces are not out here? Why only one normal forces? The ground is this ground, whenever we assume ground means earth. Okay? And we are not interested in mass or free body diagram of earth because it will be very complicated. Okay? That's why you ignore anything that is ground. And free body diagram, I'll teach you how to draw free body diagram. But just remember, we basically ignored the forces on the ground. Equal and opposite reaction, of course, applies on the ground too. But we just ignore it for the sake of our convenience. Okay. Now the third type of force is spring force. Spring force. Now for spring force, you'll have to go to demonstration. I have made a little bit of demonstration. So this demonstration, after that will come back. Okay. So now we'll learn a little bit about spring force. Spring force. Okay. So suppose this is a wall. This is a wall. And this is a spring. Okay. This is a spring. Now suppose I kept this spring in this wall, adjacent to this wall. Okay. So this is the natural length of the spring. This is the natural length of the spring. So let's draw this spring. Now if I kept a block out here, the force on the block would be equals to 0 because the spring is neither stretched nor compressed. Okay. Now the same spring I take out here. But now I compress it. I compress the spring. Okay. I compress the spring by some amount of x. That means initial length was this much and I compressed it by this much, x amount of length. Okay, that means the spring is trying to force this body in this direction. Okay, and that spring force is given by kx, where x is the elongation from natural length. X is the elongation from natural length. Okay, and k is the spring constant. Okay, similarly, now suppose instead of compressing, I try to stretch the spring from natural length. I try to pull the spring. That means the spring will pull back the body. Suppose I elongate it by, this was original length, or this was the natural length of the spring, and I elongated it by x. So the force on this body of an elongated spring would be given by k into x. Okay, notice out here, when you compress the spring, the spring tries to expand back. That means spring is forcing the block in the opposite direction. And when we elongate the spring, the spring is trying to pull back to its natural length. Okay, that means the spring will always try to go back to its natural length. Now, let's take a specialized case from this one. Suppose, say, I compress the spring by x. Then again I compress the spring by delta y. That means out here was delta x and out here was delta y. That means the original length of the spring was this much. For in this case I compressed it by delta x and further I compressed it by delta y. So what should be the force exerted by the spring on this body? It should be k x plus y or only k y, or F is equals to k y. Which should be the correct option? The correct option is k x plus y. Why? Because the elongation or compression of the spring, or this factor of x that is multiplied, should be always calculated from natural length. Okay, elongation or compression from natural length. Okay, the force exerted by spring is always elongation or compression from natural length. Okay, similarly out here, suppose this was elongated to L plus x, as in this case. Now I again elongated it to plus y. Okay, the force with which the spring pulls back this block is F is equals to k x plus y, or elongation from the natural length. Okay, not the previous length. The force exerted by the spring is always elongation, a constant of spring which is given by k, multiplied by elongation of the spring from natural length. Okay, now let's deal with k. What is k? K is a spring constant. That means if the spring is same, k will remain same. So let's now hear a story. Okay, here story means you don't, this is outside your syllabus and you don't have to remember, but you have to observe a point out here. K is given by pi g small d to the power 4 by capital D square L. So what is this? We have never seen this formula. It's good. You don't need to see this formula. The only thing you need to remember out here is, okay, K is some constant divided by L, where L is the natural length of the spring. Okay, this L is natural length of the spring. So why am I telling you this? Why am I telling you the relation between spring constant and natural length L? Okay, suppose a spring of length L. Suppose this was 10 millimeter, 1 inch. 10 millimeter. Okay, this is not actually 10 millimeter, but suppose this was say 10 millimeter. This spring was 10 millimeter. Now I cut this spring into two equal spring, one of 2 millimeter and the other of 8 millimeter and the other of 8 millimeter. So a natural spring of 10 millimeter was cut into two springs of 2 millimeter and 8 millimeter. How do we form or how do we calculate the spring constant? That means suppose the spring constant was of this was given as K is equals to 50 Newton per meter. Find out the spring constant of this spring of spring suppose A and this spring KB of spring B. How do we find out Ka and Kb? So suppose a spring is cut, that means out here this constant, okay, G is nothing but the material of the spring. Okay, G is nothing but the material with which the spring is made of. This small d, you see this small d? Small d is nothing but, this spring is made up of a thin wire. This spring is made up of a thin wire. Now this wire has a diameter, okay, that diameter of this spring, that is the diameter of this spring. This capital D, see the cross section of this spring. Now this cross section has a diameter. Capital D is this diameter of the spring. Now when you cut a spring, the material remains constant, the diameter of this thin wire remains constant, and the diameter out here remains constant. What changes is L. Okay, so I can apply this formula, K is equals to constant by L. So if K is equals to constant by L, that means the product of KL and L is constant. That means 50 into 10 or 50 spring constant into natural length of the spring is constant. That means 50 into 10 is equals to spring constant of Ka into length of this spring is equals to Kb into length of this spring. Okay. Now, can we find out Ka and Kb from this equation? Of course, if we divide 50 into 10 by 2, you obtain Ka as 250. 50 into 10 is equals to 500. 500 divided by 2 is 250. And similarly 50 into 10 500 divided by 8, or Kb is equals to 62.5. Kb is equals to 62.5. That means if we cut a spring, the product of spring constant and the original length, so the product of spring constant and length, sorry, not original length, the product of spring constant and length is always constant until and unless your diameter or the wire diameter changes or the material of the spring changes. And in your entire NEET curriculum, when a spring is cut, these three will never change. That means the spring material will never change. If you are cutting this spring, how will the spring material change? Okay, this diameter or this wire will never change. Okay, and this D, capital D is this diameter, this will also not change. Okay, so always remember the product of spring constant into spring length, and that spring length is natural length of the spring, is always constant. Okay, so whenever you cut a spring, the spring constant of new spring can be found out using this method. Okay, now let's proceed to presentation. So from demonstration we have learned how the K increases or decreases when you cut a spring. Okay, now the next topic is joining of a spring. Joining of a spring. Now, spring can be joined by two ways. Okay, one is series combination. and the second one is parallel combination. Parallel combination. The first one is series combination and the second one is parallel combination. So what is the difference? Suppose there are two springs kept. Spring 1 or spring constant K1 and spring 2 or spring constant K2. Now these springs are added in such a way that the head of first spring, the end of first spring is joined to the starting of second spring. This is called series combination. So when we calculate this problem by replacing this spring with something K equivalent or equivalent spring constant. Okay. How we solve this is, there is a formula called 1 by K equivalent is equals to 1 by spring constant of spring 1 plus spring constant of spring 2. 1 by spring constant of spring 2. Okay. Now what is parallel combination? Similarly, a spring is out here, K1 is added to another spring. K2. And instead of joining from head to tail, instead of joining or tying a knot between two springs, we arrange the spring parallelly. That means the block is connected to both the springs. The block is connected to both the springs, K1 and K2. Now the combination of these two springs will act, suppose we want to solve a problem by using the combination of this spring. We draw the diagram as something like this. Okay. Or 1 by K equivalent. Where K equivalent or equivalent constant of a spring is K1 plus K2. Or equivalent constant of this spring is K1 plus K2. Now do you notice a similarity out here? Have you seen this formula somewhere? This formula was there in resistance circuit. Okay? This formula was there in resistance circuit. But in case of resistance circuit, in series combination, you used to use this formula. R equivalent is equals to R1 plus R2. In parallel combination, you used to use this formula, 1 by R equivalent. Okay? But in case of spring, the formula gets opposite. In series combination, you use 1 by K equivalent is equals to 1 by K1 plus 1 by K2. And in parallel combination, use K equivalent is equals to K1 plus K2. Now there is a little bit of thing. Okay, so I taught you now series combination and parallel combination. Okay, so let's draw this diagram. Okay, let's draw the series combination and parallel combination once again. This one was spring 1, spring 2, K1, K2, and parallel combination was the spring is attached to both bodies. Spring K1 is attached also to the body and K2 is also attached to the same body. This is series and this is parallel. So by this diagram, the definition of series combination and parallel combination is evident. But now check. What happens if I define the dimension? What happens when I define the series and parallel? How do I define series and parallel? I have said series is when the second spring is added to the tail of first spring. But that cannot be the definition, no? So the definition of series is when the force gets transmitted. When the force throughout the spring or the force gets transmitted are same. What is the meaning of this? More importantly, how do you define then parallel combination of spring? So the definition of parallel combination is when elongation, let me write it a little bit, when elongation of the springs are same, when elongation of both springs are same, Sir, what is the meaning of this? Why have you just converted this simple example into a disastrous, line? Now check. Now I'll first explain what is happening, then I'll explain why did I make it a little bit tedious, then simply showing you. Okay? First let's check what is happening. When I pull this body a little bit downwards, the force exerted by this spring K2 on this body will be upward with some spring force. The same spring force will get transmitted out here, and it is the same spring force that will get transmitted to spring 1, and this spring 1 will pull the ceiling with the same spring force, same magnitude of spring force. Okay, but out here, if I pull this block downwards, the spring force out here would be different from spring force out here. Okay, happy? So what is the definition of second? When the elongation of both the springs are same. Now see this block 2. Okay, see this block 2. Suppose I pull this block downwards. If I pull this block little bit downwards, the elongation of spring 1 is x. That means the spring 1 gets elongated by distance x. Similarly, spring 2 gets elongated by the same distance x. That means when the elongations are same, that means the spring are in parallel combination. Okay, out here the stretching of K2 spring might not be equals to the stretching of K2 spring out here might not be equal to the stretching of K1 spring. Okay, this might get elongated by 2 cm and this might get elongated by 5 cm. Out here the force transmitted is same. Out here the elongation of both the springs are same. Okay, or when the change in length, elongation is a very non-scientific word. When the change in length of both the spring, change in length, this is length. Okay, now why did I make such a beautiful definition from here to here? See, there is a special case, not a special case, this will be, those who are, you won't be taking engineering, but this might come. Suppose this is a spring K1, the body is attached, and out here again spring 2 is attached. Now how many of you will say either is, what is this? This is a series combination or a parallel combination? So most of you, I don't know, but most of you will make it wrong. This is actually a parallel combination. Parallel combination. So when you only remember this definition, out here you will get confused. Okay? But if you remember the proper definition, what happens is, see out here, if I move this block towards left, a little bit towards left, okay, the amount of compression or the amount of compression of spring 1 is equal to the same amount of elongation by spring 2. That means if K1 is being compressed by x distance, K2 is being elongated by x distance. That means change in length of both the springs are same. That means they are in parallel combination. If I have to reduce this spring by this diagram, K equivalent would be K1 plus K2. Okay? This is one important note. Make it. Okay? Now, free body diagram. We'll start with the concept of free body diagram. Now there are 4 steps, okay, in drawing a free body diagram. So we'll write down step by step and we'll determine how to solve these free body diagrams as we solve the problems. Okay, step 1. Step 1. Draw out all the forces acting on the body or forces received by the body. Received by the body. We do not care about the forces, means the forces that is forces the body is applying. We do not care about those forces. We only care about the forces that the body is receiving. Okay? Draw out all the forces received by the body. We do not care about the forces applied by the body. Okay. Step 2. Step 2 is determine the direction of acceleration by visual inspection. What do I mean by this? These all things will be explained slowly as we solve problems. Okay. Determine the direction of acceleration by visual inspection. Step 3. Step 3 is assign coordinate system. That means assign x-axis and y-axis, positive of y-axis, positive of x-axis, negative of x-axis and negative of y-axis. You can determine in any direction as long as you keep it consistent. Okay. Determine the direction of y and x axis or coordinate system. Okay. Step 4. Step 4 is the important one. Net vector addition of forces or vector addition of all the forces acting on the body is equals to mass of that body into acceleration of the body. Vector addition of all the forces acting on the body is given by F is equals to mass of the body into acceleration of the body, and the net force, the direction of net force will be the direction of net acceleration. This is given in Newton's second law. Okay. Now how are these 4 forces applied? We'll solve the problem and we'll determine. So let's solve a problem. 2 bodies of mass 4 kg and 6 kg are tied to the ends of a massless spring. The string passes over a pulley which is frictionless. Okay. The acceleration of the system in terms of acceleration due to gravity G is. Okay. So pull out your notes and see those 4 steps. Okay. The first step was drawing the bodies separately or isolating the body, 4 kg, 6 kg, and drawing out all the forces acting on the body. So see the forces acting on this 4 kg block. The rope is pulling this block upwards. That means T is acting upwards. Tension always acts away from the body. And the gravity force is pulling this 4 kg block downwards. Similarly for the 6 kg block, the 6 kg block is being pulled by tension force upwards and gravity force downwards. Okay. Tension always acts away from the body. Okay. Now the second step is determine the direction of acceleration by visual inspection. That means if I see the 6 kg block, if it moves down with acceleration A, the 4 kg block will move up with acceleration A. Okay. So what happens if you don't know the masses of this block? Okay. You can also take this 6 kg block to be moving up with acceleration A and 4 kg block to be moving down with acceleration A. Okay. Both the cases are correct. However, you cannot do this. This approach is wrong. Okay. Because if you do this, that means the string is getting slack, or string is getting, no forces will be applied by this string. Okay. This is wrong, and this is equally wrong. This is also equally wrong. Okay. By visual inspection, you have to find out if this is moving down with acceleration A, this will be moving up with acceleration A. Okay. The answer of magnitude will give you, the magnitude will give you the correct direction in the answer. Okay. You don't need to worry about direction, but just remember the relative direction should be correct. That means if one is moving down, the second one will be moving up. Okay. And that you have to do by visual inspection. Okay. So this block was moving up with acceleration A, and this block was moving down with acceleration A. Now the fourth step is assign coordinate system. I assume upward as positive and downward as negative. Out here I assume downward as positive and upward as negative. So why different? Why not assume out here upwards as positive and downwards as negative? You can do that too. It doesn't make a difference. Okay? But this is a trick. Okay? Not a rule. The trick is just to make thing not complicated or simple enough. This is body A. This is body B. The trick is always assign the positive direction of acceleration to the positive axis. The direction of acceleration should be assumed positive coordinate or positive axis. Okay? Is this a rule? No. This trick just makes it very simple. Okay? Otherwise you are most likely to perform an error. Now, what is the fifth step? Fifth step was net force acting on this body. Net force acting on this body is equals to acceleration on this body. So let's write down the net force acting on this body A. So on the system A, net force is plus T, positive direction, minus 4g in negative direction, is equals to mass 4 kg into acceleration. From body B, net force or 6g positive minus T negative is equals to mass of 6g into acceleration. Okay. Now, in previous classes we have learned something about simultaneous equation. So if we add this two equation, equation A and equation B, this T gets cancelled out, or 6 minus 4 is equals to 2g is equals to 10A, or 2g by 10 is equals to g by 5 is equals to A. Okay. So our correct option is option number B. Now let's do the next question. A particle is moving with velocity v, acted by three forces by vector triangle PQR. The velocity of the particle will be, that means a particle is acted by three forces: force P, force Q and force R. If we rearrange these three forces P, Q, R, if we rearrange these three forces, it forms a triangle, closed triangle. Okay? These three forces are rearranged. Okay? For the ease of calculation. Now make a note. Whenever a group of vectors form a closed polygon, the resultant of vector is equals to 0. That means whenever a group of polygon forms, group of vectors form a closed polygons, group of vectors form a closed polygon. Polygon means it can be triangle, it can be square, it can be octahedron, okay, any side, but it must be closed. Okay, the resultant or the vector summation of all those vectors is equals to 0. The resultant of the vectors of all those vectors is equals to 0. That means these three forces are being in a triangle that is being shown as something like this, and this forms a closed polygon. That means the resultant force out here is equals to 0. And Newton's law says that acceleration is directly proportional to the resultant force. So when the resultant force is 0, resultant acceleration out here is also equals to 0. So when acceleration is equals to 0, the velocity doesn't change. Okay, so velocity remains constant because acceleration is equals to 0. Now from this, there is one more thing to observe out here. I already said observation is more important in your 11th, 12th curriculum. So observe one thing. What are you observing? You are observing the relation between triangle law. In the first vector addition, I taught you something about triangle law of addition, and now I am teaching you about closed polynomial. Okay, so what are these? Closed polygon. Okay, so how are these things related? How are the vector triangle addition and this thing related? So let me write down. Relation between triangle law of addition, with closed polygon and closed polygon. So on the left hand side we write triangle law. On the right hand side we write closed polygon concept. In triangle law, what I was saying was, if this is force 1 or if this is the first vector, the second vector is the vector starting from the head of first vector and ending out here. Then the resultant or f1 vector plus f2 vector is a vector that is starting from the tail of first vector to the head of second vector, or f1 vector plus f2 vector. In closed polygon, what I said was, if this is f1 vector, if this is f2 vector, okay, up till here it is same. The second vector is starting from the head of first vector. If the third vector is x and it performs a closed, it becomes a closed polygon. That means f1 vector plus f2 vector plus x vector is equals to 0. So can we find out the similarities between this one and this one? Can we find out the similarities between f1 plus f2 and x? See out here. This f1 plus f2 vector, this f1 plus f2 vector and this x vector is just the opposite of f1 plus f2. That means x is nothing but minus of f1 f2. Minus of f1 f2. This x vector is nothing but the minus of F1 plus F2. So F1 vector plus F2 vector minus of F1 plus F2 vector gives us equals to 0. This is the relation between closed polygon rule and triangle law. See, if we add these three vectors F1, F2 and X, F1 vector plus F2 vector plus X vector. X vector is nothing but minus of F1 plus F2. Minus of F1 vector plus F2 vector. This resultant gives us 0. Okay. This is the relation between triangle law and closed polynomial. Now let's read a question. Three forces acting on a body are shown in figure. To have resultant force only along the y direction, the magnitude of minimum additional force needed is. That means the question is saying these three forces perform a resultant or make a resultant forces. This 1 Newton, this 2 Newton and this 4 Newtons combine together to make a resultant force. Now the minimum amount of force that I need to add, or the fourth force that I need to add, so that there is no component of force in this x direction. There is no component of force in this x direction. So in order to solve this problem, we need to do vector addition using component method. Okay, that means the minimum amount of force that I must add so that no force exists in x direction is along x direction. That means whatever the resultant of these three vectors comes, okay, addition of this vector plus this vector plus this vector, whatever the x component of this vector and this vector comes out in this direction should be balanced out by a fourth force x on the right hand side. Therefore the net force on the x axis would be equals to 0. Okay, so now we apply vector addition of forces using component method. Okay, now look at this angle. This angle is 60. This angle is 60. Okay, and this angle is also 60. Now when we slap this vector, therefore the question is given x component of force is equals to 0. Okay, now when you slap this vector to x axis, when you slap this 1 Newton to x axis, what happens? 1 cos 60 plus, we are slapping this 2 Newton to the x axis. Okay, so whenever you are slapping something, that means cos 2 cos 60. Now see, plus x that we require plus. This 2 Newton, sorry, this 4 Newton is acting in negative x axis and we are slapping it in x axis. So minus 4 of cos 60. So 1 cos 60 plus 2 cos 60 plus x minus of 4 cos 60 is equals to 0. So find out the value of x. Or cos 60 is nothing but 1 by 2 plus 2 into 1 by 2 is 1 plus x minus of 4 into 1 by 2 is 2 is equals to 0. Or x is equals to 1 by 2 or x is equals to 0.5 Newton. So the minimum amount of force that I must apply in x direction is 0.5 Newton, so that no component of force exists in x direction. That means 4 Newton plus 1 Newton plus 2 Newton plus x or 0.5 Newton along x axis is equals to 0 Newton on x axis. Okay, this is our question. Now let's see the next question. Okay, we'll do next question. So now let's start with the next problem. Two masses M1 and M2 of 5 kg and 10 kg are connected at the end of an inextensible string passing over an frictionless pulley as shown. When the masses are released, the acceleration of masses will be. That means this is 10 kg and this is 5 kg. Okay, so step 1 was isolate the body and draw all the forces on the body. 5 kg, 10 kg. Okay, out here tension force is acting out here, and since the rope is same, the string is same, the tension force acting on the body M2 will be T. So on the 5 kg block, T and force due to gravity 5 into G. Force due to gravity is mass into acceleration due to gravity. Okay. In the 10 kg block, T is acting upon upward direction and gravity force, which is equals to 10G, is acting in downward direction. Now the second step is assume the direction of acceleration. If this is moving down, this should be moving up. Okay. So assuming the direction of acceleration, A is down and this is up. Third is assume coordinate system. The trick is the direction of acceleration is assigned positive. Okay, and on the left hand side, the down out here would be positive and up would be negative, and out here up would be positive, down would be negative. Okay, so T minus 5G, and the step 4 is write down the equations. So equation from this A, this is system A and this is system B. Okay, so plus T from system A plus T minus 5G is equals to mass into acceleration. From system B, plus 10G minus T is equals to mass into acceleration. Now T gets cut. So 10G minus 5G is equals to 5G by 10 plus 5 is equals to 15. Or G is equals to, A is equals to G by 3. 5 by 15 is 1 by 3. Okay, is equals to A. Our correct option is option number C. Now see one thing. I'll repeat this same question using the acceleration in opposite direction. This is the question. I'll do it a little bit faster, but see. Okay. Tension force was up. Tension forces was up. Now instead of taking this acceleration down, I took this to be up. But when I have taken the right acceleration to be in upward direction, I should take the left acceleration to be in downward direction, because that has to be determined by observation. See, if M1 goes down, M2 goes up. Okay, so that should not be mistaken. Okay, now out here, this goes down with acceleration A. This is 5 kg. This is tension force. This is 5G, and for body B, 10. This is tension T. This is 10G, and this is going up with acceleration A. Now one more thing that I do is, instead of taking the direction of acceleration as positive, I have taken the direction of acceleration as negative. Upward is negative and downward is positive, or upward is negative, downward is positive. Just let's make both the things same. Okay, here upward positive, downward negative, upward positive, downward negative. This thing will create some confusion, but it will be, the answer will tell us the same thing. Okay, so let's write equation from body number A. Plus T minus 5G is equals to 5 into minus A. Why? Because acceleration is in negative direction. Okay, and from body B, plus T minus 10G is equals to plus 10A. Now if we multiply if we multiply this minus, if we multiply the left hand side and the right hand side both by minus, let's see what happens. Minus t plus 5g is equals to 5a. Okay, the minus gets disappeared from this minus of a. Okay, I can write 5g minus t is equals to 5a, or 5g minus t is equals to 5a. I am writing this equation 5g minus t is equals to 5a out here so that I can calculate it easier. Okay, so 5g minus t is equals to 5a. So let's add it. 10 minus 5, this t and this t gets cancelled. 5 minus 10 is equals to minus 5g is equals to 15a, or a is equals to minus g by 3. A is equals to minus g by 3. So what is the significance of this a is equals to minus g by 3? That means acceleration is acting in negative direction. This minus signifies that acceleration is acting in downward direction, because downward direction was negative. Okay. So our answer will automatically give us the values of direction. Okay. Now let's proceed to the next question. A monkey of mass is a little bit means negative, means acceleration is acting in downward direction. Okay, out here I have already taken minus a. Okay. A monkey of mass 20 kg is holding a vertical rope. The rope will not break when the mass is 25 kg. 25 kg is suspended from it, but it will break if the mass exceeds 25 kg. What will be the maximum acceleration with which the monkey can climb up the rope? Okay, so let's take the rope first. A rope, when the rope is holding 25 kg, it will not break. But as soon as I add 1 more gram, if I add 1 more gram of salt out here, the rope will break. So out here, the tension force applied on this body of 25 kg is the maximum tension force this rope could afford. Okay, so what is the maximum tension force this rope could afford? Let's draw the free body diagram of this 25 kg. T and 25 into g, and g is assumed at 10. So 25 into 10 is 250 Newton. And this is maximum tension force. And since this is not going anywhere, or acceleration is equals to 0, I can easily say T max minus 250 is equals to 25 into 0, or T max is equals to 250. Okay. Now our monkey comes in the question. Using this same rope, now I unloaded this block and put a monkey out here. This is the same rope. Now a monkey is pulling the rope, and in turn the rope is pulling the monkey with upward force, and the monkey is moving up with some acceleration. So let's draw the FBD of monkey. The monkey is pulling the rope, and in turn the rope is pulling the monkey, and there is a gravity force acting on this monkey, which is equals to weight of the monkey, that is given by 20 kg, and the value of gravitational acceleration, that is given by 10, or is equals to 20 into 10 is equals to 200 Newton. And since the monkey is climbing up using the tension force, there is some acceleration. Now the question is asking, what is the maximum acceleration? What is the maximum acceleration that the monkey can climb up so that the rope doesn't break? Now see, let's see what is happening out here. As the monkey tries to climb faster with more acceleration, he will pull the rope with much larger force. So tension out here will keep on increasing. Okay, and beyond 250 Newton, if this tension exceeds this 250 Newton, that means this rope will break. So maximum force this rope can afford is equals to 250 Newton. Okay, so T minus, or T max minus 200 Newton, which is the weight of the monkey, is equals to mass of monkey 20 kg into maximum acceleration that this rope can afford. Okay, so T max is given as 250. So 250 minus 200 is equals to 20A, or A is equals to 50 by 20. How? 250 minus 200 is 50. You take this 20 to the left hand side. So 5 by 2. 5 by 2 is nothing but 2.5. So our correct answer is option number B. Okay. Now let's look at the next question. A mass of a lift is 2000 kg. When the tension in the supporting cable is 28,000 Newton, then its acceleration is. This is a lift. This is 2000 kg. Let's draw the forces on this lift. A cable is pulling this lift up, and gravity forces is acting on this cable. Okay, gravity forces is 2000, that is a mass, into 10. 2000 into 10 is 20,000. So this tension force, the value of this tension force is given as 28,000 Newton. Okay, tension in the supporting cable is 28,000 Newton. So T is equals to 28,000, and there is some acceleration. Okay, find out this acceleration. So upward is positive, downward is negative. Common sense. Okay, so 28,000 minus 20,000. I'm writing it down here. Okay, I'm doing this quicker because I'm assuming that you all can by now. So after solving so much problem, you all can do this on your own. Okay, that's why I'm going a little bit quicker out here. Is equals to mass into acceleration. So 28,000 minus 20,000 is equals to 8,000 is equals to 2,000 A. Or A is equals to 4 meter per second square. Okay. Now this A is positive, and I assume upward to be positive. Okay, and downward to be negative. See, plus T. This was nothing but T, no? This was plus T, and this was minus of mg. So 4 meter per second in upward direction. And if we apply a little bit observation, since the tension force is greater than the gravity forces, the body will obviously be going up. Okay. So next question. A lift of mass 1000 kg is moving upwards with an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. The tension developed in the string is. Okay, this is a lift. 1000 kg. Tension, gravity force. 1000 into 10. This is 9.8 is given us, but I assumed is at 10. Okay, let's assume is at 9.8 only. 1000 into 9.8 is 9800. Okay. 1000 into 9.8 is equals to 9800 Newton, and it's moving up with an acceleration of 1 meter per second. So let's draw. T minus 9800 is equals to 1000 into 1. Okay, or T is equals to, I take the 9800 on the right hand side. Okay, 9800 plus 1000 is equals to 10,800. The correct option is option number B. Now, a person of a mass 60 kg is inside a lift of mass 940 kg. Okay, and presses the button of a control panel on a control panel. This is worthless information. The lift starts moving upward with an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. If G is equals to, or acceleration due to gravity is equals to 10 meter per second square, then the tension in the supporting cable is. So this is a lift. This is the same question, just a lengthy version of the same question. The mass of this lift is 940 kg. There is a person inside this lift. The weight of this person is 60 kg. So I don't care who is in the lift, or who is, means whatever and whoever is doing whatever inside the lift. And net mass of the lift is 940 plus 60 is equals to 1000 kg. Okay. Now I don't care who is inside this lift, either person or elephant, doesn't matter to me. Okay. Now someone, or the lift is being pulled up by a rope, and there is gravity forces acting on this lift. 1000 into 10. The lift moves up with an acceleration of 1 meter per second. Okay. So upward is positive, downward is negative. The question is asking tension. Okay, so plus T minus 10,000, 1000 into 10 is 10,000 is equals to mass, which is equals to 1000 into A. Okay, A is 1, or T is equals to 10,000 plus 1,000, 11,000. Our correct option is option number B. Okay. Simply, again this question, this is same type of question. A mass of 1 kg is suspended by a thread. Acha. Now in case 1, it was lifted up with an acceleration of 4.9 meter per second. In case 2, it was lowered with an acceleration of 4.9 meter per second square. The ratio of tensions are, that means there are two scenarios. In scenario 1, this 1 kg block was being pulled up, and this is gravity forces. This is case 1 or case A. Okay, and this is case B. Same 1 kg block being pulled by tension forces. Suppose this is tension 1, this is tension 2, and this is 10 kg gravity forces. Sir, why are the tension different? Because acceleration out here are different. In the first case, the block is moving up with 4.9 or is equals to 5. 4.9 can be written as 5. See, I have practiced a little bit, that's why I am approximating as 5. Okay. And in case 2, it was lowered with an acceleration of 4.9, that can be roughly estimated as 5. So obviously the tension will be different, because if tension out here is equals to tension out here, the body would not be moving down, no? The body would be moving up. Okay. So since the acceleration determines the force of the tension force in the string, okay, the tensions are different. So in first case, this is positive, this is negative. In the second case, down is positive, up is negative. See, I have told you that you can name your convention, and the trick is to apply positive sign in the direction of acceleration. If you do that, your questions will be easier. Okay, in the main examination, don't play around with the symbols. Okay, you can practice with upward and downward conventions, okay, as much as you can, but in the main examination, remember this trick as a formula. Okay, so in the first case, or case A, T1 minus 10 is equals to mass into acceleration 1 into 5. This is from case A. From case B, 10 minus T plus 10 minus T2 is equals to 1 into 5 B. Okay, or T1 out here, or T1 out here can be written as 15 Newton. I took the 10 to the right hand side, and T2 out here can be written as 5. I took the T2 to the right hand side and 5 to the left hand side. So T1 by T2 can be written as 3 by 1. T1 divided by T2 is equals to 15 divided by 5 Newton is equals to 3 is to 1. Okay. Now, this is a tricky question. Okay. This is not a conceptual question. This is a very tricky question. Okay. 3 blocks with mass m, 2m and 3m are connected by a string. Very good. As shown in the figure. Very good. After an upward force of F is applied on the block. Good. The mass moves upward at a constant speed v. Okay. This is the entire question. And these types of question will only give you, means this type of, here most people make the most mistakes. Okay, what is the net force on the block of mass 2m? Okay, if this entire thing is moving with constant velocity, that means acceleration of this block is equals to 0. Acceleration of this block is also equals to 0. Acceleration of this block also equals to 0. That means if force is acting out here, that means tension is acting out here, gravity forces is acting out here. Similarly, all the forces, all the bodies experiences force in varying degree of nature. But the net force, net summation of force on all these 3 blocks is equals to 0. Okay, that means upward force is equals to downward force. That means net force on this body is equals to 0. If net force on the body is equals to 0, that means acceleration is equals to 0. This net force, that means total upward force is equals to total upward force on each of the block is equals to total downward force on each of the block. Thereby acceleration is equals to 0 because net force is equals to 0. Okay, this was the trick that was used in this question. Okay, whenever a body is moving with constant velocity, always remember the net acceleration is equals to 0. Okay, until and unless the body changes its mass. Whenever a body is moving with constant velocity, first check if its mass is constant. In 99% of the case, the mass will be constant. Okay, and if mass is constant, that means net force on that body is equals to 0. Acceleration 0, check for mass. If change in mass is also 0, that means force is equals to 0. Okay, or else acceleration is equals to 0, see if mass is changing. If mass is changing, as in rocket case, that means there will be some force. Okay, let's draw a tree diagram. Acceleration is equals to 0 if change in mass is also equals to 0, as in 90% of the case or 99% of the case. That means the mass of the body remains constant. Therefore, force is equals to 0. If dm by dt or change of mass is not equals to 0, as in case of rocket where the body is changing its mass, then force can be of any value. Force will be of some value or not equals to 0. Okay. Now we'll do some revision of a type of force called normal force. I've taught you normal force a little bit before. Okay, types of forces, tension forces. Up till now we have dealt with tension forces. Now we'll deal with normal forces. Okay, normal forces. Okay, so normal force or reaction force, the pushing force exerted by two bodies in contact at the surface of contact is called normal force. That means the force exerted by this contact or this surface on body B and body A, these are called normal forces. Okay, normal forces cannot pull anything. Okay, normal forces are always perpendicular to the surface of contact. Okay, so let's try to solve a problem or understand this by solving a problem. Okay, 3 blocks of mass A, B and C of mass 4 kg, 2 kg and 1 kg respectively are in contact on a frictionless surface as shown. If force of 14 Newton is applied, that means this force is 14 Newton. This force is 14 Newton applied on the 4 kg block. This is 4 kg block, this is 2 kg block and 1 kg block. If 14 Newton is applied on the 4 kg block, then the contact forces between A and B is. That means they have asked us to find the reaction forces or normal forces applied by this surface, Okay, by this surface. So the concept is same. Step 1, draw free body diagram. Draw free body diagram. That means separate the body and draw out all the forces acting on it. Block A, Block A, Block B, Block C. The force of 14 Newton is pushing and normal reaction between this surface. Let this surface be A or 1, not 1 is a very P. Okay, let this surface be P and let this surface be Q. Okay. So normal reaction forces experienced by this surface is exerted by the surface on block A is on left hand side, or NP. See, now I am assigning variables, but as you practice more, you do not need to assign any variables. Okay, they will be automatic. Okay, equal and opposite. The force applied by this surface on block A is towards left hand side, NP. Equal and opposite force will be applied on block B on the right hand side. Okay. Now, the force applied by this surface Q on block B is towards left hand side. I'm drawing it a little bit up. Okay. Equal and opposite force will be acting on right. Okay. And let's say this is moving with acceleration A. That means by common observation, this will also be moving with acceleration A, and this will also be moving with acceleration A. Now the third step is determine the direction of positive and negative. So right side is positive, left side is negative. And the fourth step is write down the equation. So from body A, okay, 14 plus 14 minus NP is equals to mass of body A is 4 kg into acceleration of A. From body B, NP minus NQ, positive NP, positive is towards the right hand side, minus NQ is equals to 2A. And from the body C, or from this last body, okay, positive NQ is equals to 1 into A. Now if we solve these two, this NQ and this NQ gets cut, or NP is equals to 2A plus 1A is equals to 3A. Now if we put this NP out here, okay, so 14 is equals to 14 minus 3A is equals to 4A, okay, or 14 is equals to 7A, or A is equals to 2. A is equals to 2. That means I have determined the direction of acceleration. Determine the direction of acceleration. A is equals to 2 meters per second. Now the question is asking then the contact force between A and B. That means the contact force at N is equals to P. NP they are asking. Okay. So we know that NP minus NQ is equals to 2A. Okay. NP minus NQ, or from out here, NP is equals to 3A. Okay, no need to solve the entire thing again. NP is equals to 3A and A is equals to 2 meters per second, or NP is equals to 3 into 2 meters per second is equals to 6 Newton. I have solved this in a lengthy way because this is it will be easier for you to understand. Okay, as you practice more and more, this thing won't be required. This labeling of P and Q won't be required. Then this assigning symbols to right and left won't be required. Okay, many things won't be required. You can do this directly also. By common observation, this body will stick together. That means 4 plus 2 plus 1. 14 Newton is moving 7 kg of mass. Therefore, by common sense, acceleration is equal to 2. You can simply write 6. But don't apply shortcut without practice. As I keep on saying, there will be many tips, there will be many tricks, but apply tips and tricks only after practice. Okay. Now, some spring force. Now, some revision of spring force. Okay. Revision of spring force. The force exerted by a spring on an object is given by Kx, where K is the spring constant and X is the elongation of the spring. Okay, elongation of the spring from its natural length. And suppose this was the mass of the body and this was gravitational force due to mass of the body. Okay, so this was our spring force. So we'll try to solve a question from spring force. So let's do a problem with a spring force. So two blocks A and B of mass 3m and m respectively are connected by a massless and inextensible spring. Okay, string. Sorry. The whole system is suspended by a massless spring as shown in figure. the magnitude of acceleration of A and B immediately after the string is cut is, that means this is a body, this is the system, okay, this is not moving, this is staying as it is. Now someone came and cut the spring with a scissor. Now when they cut the spring, this body A will rebound back with some acceleration. Now the question is asking, find the acceleration at which the body will rebound back. Okay, find the acceleration with which this body will rebound back or move up. Okay, now let's draw FBD or free body diagram. Free body diagram means initial FBD. Initial means when the string was not cut. When this string was not cut, that time we are drawing that FBD or initial FBD. Initial free body diagram. When the string itself was not cut. So this one is body A. This one is body B. Okay. Let's draw the forces on each of these bodies. Body A is experiencing spring force, gravity force of 3 mg, and a tension that is pulling itself down with T. See, this tension is pulling the body A in downward direction because tension always acts away from the body. Similarly for body B, tension force is pulling it upwards and gravity force is pulling it downwards. Now the acceleration of both the blocks is equals to 0 before the string is cut because the system is as it is. Nothing was moving out here. Okay. So let's write down the equation. Okay. I assumed upward to be positive and downward to be negative. You can, when the acceleration is 0, okay, when the acceleration is 0, it is freedom of, means you have the ultimate freedom to do anything, take any direction. Okay, that is another trick. Okay, kx plus kx minus t minus 3 mg is equals to 0. Okay, and from equation B, t minus mg is equals to 0. So if we add these two, this t and this t gets cut. Okay, so kx minus mg minus 3 mg becomes minus 4 mg is equals to 0 plus 0 is equals to 0, or kx is equals to 4 mg. Okay, up till here it was clear. Okay, now there is an important concept that you need to know while solving this problem. Okay, the important concept is, as soon as the string is cut, the tension force disappears, but all other forces stay as it is. That means as soon as the string is cut, this tension force and this tension force will vanish, but everything, kx, this 3 mg, this mg will remain with the same value. That means the value of kx would be 4 mg, the value of gravity forces would be 3 mg, the value of these gravity forces on this body would be mg. Okay, so let's write the thing concept. As soon as the string is cut, the tension forces disappears, but all the other forces stays as it is. The tension forces disappears, but all the other forces stays as it is. So now I cut the spring. So this one is equals to spring force kx, 3 mg or gravity force, and this tension force disappeared. From this body also B, this tension force disappeared and mg or force due to gravity remains as it is. That means this body B will be accelerating downwards with some acceleration, okay, A1 or acceleration of body B, and this body A will be moving upwards with some acceleration, assume A. So we know that from previous slides kx is equals to 4 mg, or kx is equals to 4 mg. So let's write down the equation of body A. Now let's draw the equation. Kx minus 3 mg is equals to mass of body A, which is equals to 3m into acceleration of body A. Okay. Kx, we know that kx is equals to 4 mg, or 4 mg minus 3 mg is equals to 1 mg, is equals to 3m, which is the mass of the body, into acceleration of A. Or this m and this m gets cancelled, or acceleration of A is g by 3. Acceleration of A is g by 3. Similarly for body B, the only force acting on this body B is this gravity force. So mg is equals to mass of body B into acceleration of body B. So acceleration of B is gravity, acceleration due to gravity downwards. So our correct option is g by 3 and g. G by 3 for the body A and g for the body B. So the first block will be moving up with an acceleration of g by 3 in upward direction, and the second block will be moving down with an acceleration of g.